Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing another video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I want to talk about a few different things with no specific subject in this video, but some things that might be interesting. And I want to talk about how a lot of people view romance and reproduction as a race to score the baby as quickly as possible, and it is commonly thought that the winner is the one who gets there first, which sometimes is true in the animal kingdom, but people aren't animals. Civilization and society are a departure from nature, a departure from the jungle, and there are some predictable problems with this strategy of getting there first, eventually, when it's rolled out at scale, as they say. So consider that getting there first can, when you involve technology, especially things like high-tech networks, high-speed communication, contraception, and other human-only aspects, you end up with the effect of what's called randomized mating. And that is people being less able to choose their mate or their spouse based on natural attraction, but more about what technology and economic advantages have gotten somebody else to the prize first, so to speak. So here's the problem. The problem is that when mating is randomized, you have a very unfortunate situation where quality that used to depend on natural selection, people being able to be attracted in the most natural way possible to a reproductive prospect, is replaced by, like I said, technological advantages, economic advantages, people undercutting other people with their status, with their clout, with their circles and their networks, which none of this exists in nature, in the animal kingdom. Animals don't use the internet, typically speaking. Animals don't use high-speed communications. Animals don't have an economic system that creates artificial barriers to entry. Animals don't do any of this stuff, which means that humans, as a departure from a natural order, have new variables to contend with. But they also, at the same time, have the same hazards in terms of mutation, in terms of things creeping into the gene pool that need to be culled, such as disease and genetic susceptibilities, genetic exposures to, antibiotic resistance. It's a big subject. The entire body of medicine and health of human beings is at peril when traits such as medical problems become strictly private, while we're still randomizing or increasing the randomization of mating practices. Maybe that makes sense. So the problems don't show up right away, but they are showing up because this has been going on for quite some time in this part of the world, in human society, in civilized society. The expectation that people are going to conform to some social structure, some framework of reproductive medicine, where you have access to a hospital, where you have access to reproductive clinics, fertility clinics, and you have access to social services such as legal defense and legal action if you just decide that you don't want to be with the poor man, for example. I mean, to be blunt, women are turned on by money. The average woman. I don't want to speak for all women. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I am saying that it's a well-known fact that money can be an aphrodisiac, which means you are further removed from a natural state of being attracted to people on natural terms. So 50 years ago, 100 years ago, we kind of just got into full swing with this whole program where reproduction is a function of the economy at this point. It's a function of technology and money, and it has become much, much less about having good genes, having courage and bravery, and which is kind of a segue to a separate connected subject, which is you can look at other people, your neighbors, your friends, your family, your coworkers, in one of two different ways. generally speaking. You can look at them as allies first, all things being equal, or you can look at them as adversaries first, all things being equal. So another aspect that's connected, and I'll connect it in just a second, to my story that I just told about reproduction, is we have been drilled and schooled and educated to believe that everything's a competition. We're always in competition for the job, for the woman, or the mate, or whatever, and we're told that everything's about whoever gets there first. It's all a big race. So what this does, among other things, is it turns your neighbor into an adversary. It turns everybody into adversaries, which means there's an interesting feature to an environment, any environment, that uses this principle as its prevailing message. And that feature is people who are stronger, people who are more adapted or successful, naturally, biologically advantaged, that is, having superior genes because it happens, people who are born with less hereditary diseases, for example, if that's the only metric, or people who are born with natural abilities, talents that aren't common, that they inherited. These people in that environment are regarded as a liability when it is a competition, when everything is a competition. People who are naturally stronger are regarded as a threat and a liability to everybody. And if somebody is naturally advantaged enough, they become a martyr. They become a public outcast, if for no other reason. I mean, people make up stuff to implement it, right? To facilitate outcasting who they consider to be an adversary. They'll make up whatever story needs to be told to get it done, for example, among other things. So, point is that there's two ways to look at it. Back to the point. You can look at people as adversaries first, or you can, look at the rhetoric that is actually rife in the American founding documents, including the Pledge of Allegiance, which says, "United we stand, divided we fall." Have you thought about this? Have these words should sound familiar, but have you actually thought what they mean? United we stand. What does united mean? United States of America, for example, but what was the idea behind being united? It means that as a nation, if not as a world, at least as the United States of America, we are one people. We are united. But the idea itself has been just murdered with an obsession about citizenship. I mean, I'm kind of sprawling around, but I'm going to circle back here in just a second. An obsession about trying to figure out who belongs where'd you come from, who are you even in our community. All of a sudden everybody's an adversary again for more than one reason now, which means the stronger people, the more naturally advantaged people, become liabilities, right? Now, if you happen to know that in advance for some reason, connected to the subject of genetic engineering, human cloning, if you will, if you know that a person is advantaged, and let's be honest, that's the only reason why somebody would be cloned, you are going to regard this person as a liability more than anything else in this environment where everything is a competition. The alternative, my big point with this section is the alternative is to regard people as allies first, to regard our nation, if not the entire world, as being united for a very good reason, because strong people only help you at that point. When scarcity and understanding are not in short supply, when scarcity isn't a problem and understanding is not prohibitive, regarding people as allies, that is, teaming up when it's, appropriate, within reason, working together as members of a community or a state and a country and the whole world, hopefully at some point, only makes sense. It helps you. It makes you stronger working together. And you don't have to fight your neighbor. You don't have to be forever on the outlook for people who might be stronger than you so that you can gang up on them and take them down. We learn how to take people down in this world, in this part of the world anyway. We learn about football games. Everything's a football game. We're going to take down the competition. We're going to kick your legs out from under you. You're going to win by any means necessary. We're going to win. Me and my buddies, because they're my buddies. And never mind who has good genes. Never mind who has natural talent or aptitude. I'm going to, first and foremost, get control of that situation because that person is a liability in this place. This is the situation. Hopefully all this makes sense. So back to the original subject. A person who has good genes, when they are kicked out because it is more about economics and technology now than nature, than letting people choose who to mate with. It's more about getting there first by any means necessary, even if it involves high-speed networks, guns, keys, locks, money, circles of influence, barriers to entry, educational requirements, medical requirements. When it requires all this stuff besides, love at first sight, so to speak, which is what you got in the animal kingdom, hopefully, you have what we call an extinction level event. Because if you haven't noticed, if you haven't looked around, disease is proliferating everywhere you look. You have an extreme uptick in things like asthma, in things like onset dementia in old age, people just dying from diabetes. I mean, I don't want to list off tons of diseases, but you've heard of all this stuff, and it's getting really, really bad. Our solution as a collective, as a country and a community, is to identify people with good genes, and after we're done harassing them, we inject them back into the gene pool, right? We say, okay, well, your big golden parachute is to get put out to pasture. Thank you for all your help. We're really glad that you enjoyed the football game, and we're going to tell you about it afterwards, the metaphorical football game, that is. And now you can retire on our terms so that our species can, not perish. So you don't have to understand every piece of this, but you can believe it when I say it's not good enough. Water, the concept of water as necessity, if you're familiar with the symbol and the analogy, the metaphor again, water to keep the species healthy is a stall tactic at best. It's not going to thin the herd. You're not getting rid of the diseased animals in the herd. And we are very much a herd of people. We're a herd of animals. So when the herd is never thinned and it's all about who gets there first, and there's no opportunity for people to actually just be attracted on natural basis, you have at your hands an extinction level event. The burden placed on society, the burden placed on our infrastructure by the growing number of diseased people is unsupportable. The infrastructure cannot sustain or finance or fix or cure all of the people who are supposed to just be dying off and before reproduction. It sounds harsh. And you don't have to understand evolution, but all of the features that you take for granted, your health, your eyes, your ears, everything about you that you like, that works pretty well, hopefully, in you, if it's still working, is the product of millions of years of evolution. Millions of years, unfortunately, of brutish early death, where undesirable or unsavory traits are culled from the gene pool before the age of reproduction. This is how it works. Kids and young people, before reproducing or during their lives, would die off before those genes could move forward. This is the principle of it. Survival of the fittest and natural selection. Eventually, over the course of millions of years, you end up with what you now call a human being with health and happiness, a lot of natural abilities, but we mutate with every generation, slightly, sometimes not so slightly. Sometimes there are wild jumps, and without proper culling of the herd, and I'm not suggesting we just go out and kill everybody who's diseased or start, not supporting the disadvantaged. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that our species do a reality check as to the solutions that we've been using in particular the ones that are causing so much problems today, so many problems today. It's all connected. The burden on our infrastructure precipitates conflict with other countries because it creates an economic burden domestically. The growing number of diseased people is a financial burden. It's an emotional burden because people are stressed out. They can't make ends meet. Combined with our economic system, you end up with an inevitable disaster on a global scale. The solution, if you will, I'm already at 15 minutes, this is going on, but the solution is to first admit that there's a problem. Admit that people weren't, invented by God merely thousands of years ago, if you think that. Okay, let's get off that for a second. It's not true. We can prove in a laboratory that things evolve. Laboratory proof is evident. It's measurable, reproducible. You can prove that genetics change over time. You can prove that things mutate. So, until we understand the truth, we being whoever's concerned about the fate of humanity, until the truth is acknowledged and identified, there is no path forward. You're only going to make things worse, everything you do, if it is based on a lie. So you start with acknowledgement of the situation, a realistic assessment. What is the problem? How did we get here? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? How do we fix it? And I'm telling you, the solution is to evolve, to leave it up to chance a little bit, to quit meddling in people's romance. And it sounds like an overly simple solution, right? To quit meddling in people's romance, to quit micromanaging people pairing together. But it's one of the most basic building blocks of survival for any species in the universe. Non-random mating, selective mating, choosing somebody based not on economic reasons or technological reasons or high-speed networks or whatever, but because you're genuinely and individually attracted to a person. Individually is key, not because your circle has green-lighted it, not because they believe the same politics that your circle believes, but because you as a person are physically and emotionally attracted to another person. Then you should have babies. If you want to have babies. I'm not saying you have to. It's a lot to think about. It's a complicated subject. In final conclusion, there is a gigantic problem right now on Earth threatening all of human existence. And you don't have to believe it, but if you know anything, if you're not distracted by what you see on your screen other than this, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it already. You've seen the problems emerging. And everything I've said should sound true because it is 100% true. Quit messing with people's romance. There's a very simple way to do it, and it's not to micromanage it. Quit forcing people in general to do things. There's a bigger rule here. You're not welcome in other people's business. They're not subservient to you automatically. You don't own everybody. You don't own their house first if you're an authority. You have no business in their business until you do. Reach out with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.